The Football War. El Salvador and Honduras started a war over football, or soccer in the USA, in the early 60s of the last century. Two small Latin American countries. Military juntas rule. The bigger country is Honduras. The smaller country, more precisely, the smallest country in Central America, is El Salvador. And naturally, El Salvador has a population density several times higher than Honduras, and in general, than any of the neighboring countries. Apparently, people in small countries love to actively reproduce. In El Salvador, there wasn't any land and work opportunities, but literally, near the border, there were thousands of square kilometers of completely ownerless land. What happened was what was supposed to happen. Salvadorans, spitting on everything and collecting backpacks with hoes and construction tools, and finally reflecting on the love of the homeland with a capital letter, escaped to a nearby so fine and so empty Honduras. Ended it kinda weird. Towards the end of the 60s, for Salvadorans, getting local citizenship became everything complicated. And the thing is, Honduras loved getting into debt, and half of these debts had to be returned to whom? Right, to Salvador. Funny that Honduras already tried to kick out all those Salvadorans with land reform in the 62nd year. Despite that most of these emigrants just wanted, really wanted, and were ready to pass all circles of bureaucratic hell and eat their own boots just to get Honduran citizenship. Add local nationalist border skirmishes here, a military government not too focused on social needs, and it turns out the picture is straight up dystopian. And that's on finally the 69th year. The last dying breaths of hippie culture, summer, and the time of last football matches and the final push to reach the first World Cup. Enter 1969. The tension is already suffocating, and naturally, the football gods decided these two neighbors had to face off for a spot in the World Cup. The first showdown was in the Honduran capital. The atmosphere was ugly, the game was nervous, but the hosts managed to scrape by with a shaky 1-0 win. The next day, on national radio, quite confidently passed the sea of ads dedicated to what terrible riots guests from Salvador made. They actually happened, although they may not have been so scary as the national media broadcast. Oil added to the fire in another country, Salvador. One exceptionally impressionable Salvadoran individual named Emilia Bolaños, 18 years old, watching the match on TV and being disappointed in herself and country and God, shot herself right into her broken heart with her dad's gun. First blood. All around, Salvadorans were filled with noble rage. Should it have even been scheduled? Well, one match was not enough. And maybe if Honduras won in it, everything would end well. But I say noble rage fueled the Salvadoran forces, and they crushed Honduras with 3 consecutive goals. Fan fights, processions with banners, campfires on the streets, and other joys of healthy sports competition heated by years of discord. But decide who will go to fight for the World Cup? It was still necessary, and it was decided to hold the third final decisive match on neutral territory in Mexico City. Military forces surrounded the stadium filled with bloodthirsty fans. Game started. The score was 2-2. Extra time. And here he is, the decisive goal against Honduras. Unrest of unprecedented scale, mutual notes of protest hours after this, severance of all diplomatic relations, instant mobilization, and the beginning of hostilities. Rapid and decisive offensive with airstrikes of El Salvador. And the Honduras government didn't feel the embarrassment, responding no less promptly. During a strike by one single military aircraft, all oil depots and fuel storage facilities were destroyed in El Salvador as a result. The war became simply impossible to continue. The war lasted literally 100 hours, killing 5,000 people on both sides, mostly civilians, several airplanes, and at the same time, all hopes for that both countries would not find themselves in such a deep mess, that recent problems will seem to them honey and ambrosia. Thousands of wounded, huge expenses for quick mobilization, destroyed pieces of infrastructure, finals for those who believed in peace in Central America, deep economic crisis from which they still can't recover, increased power of the military, plus division of territory, which reached its logical end only at the beginning of the 90s, plus civil war in Salvador from 79th to 92nd, proving once again that nothing fixes an economic crisis quite like a 12-year civil war. And the cherry on top? The grand prize for all this bloodshed? El Salvador actually went to the 1970 World Cup. They played 3 matches, lost every single one of them, and didn't score a single goal. History calls it the football war, implying it was just a game gone wrong. But looking at the body count and the decades of ruin that followed, it's pretty clear that in this game, nobody won. If you enjoy this kind of content, like and subscribe.